How would you feel about someone who, at his wife's funeral, doesn't cry, but instead beat on a clay pot and sins? Well, you might think he's either crazy or a genius. Crazy because he's ignoring every social norm and shows no normal emotional reaction. A genius because he sees through the true nature of life and death and can weave extraordinary philosophy into everyday life. This person is Zhuangzi, and he pushes us to rethink what we call normal. Some say he was a profound thinker, a wise hermit, a brilliant artist, and a spiritual guide. Others think he was just a wild, impractical critic. Do you believe he was mad or a genius? After watching this video, you'll probably have a much deeper view of him. Today, in the second part of our Taoist history series, we'll introduce Zhuangzi and the tradition he helped shape, known as the Lao-Zhuang school. You will learn about the era he lived in, who he was, his philosophical ideas, his famous fables, his approach to cultivation, and his status in Daoism. At Shengxuan Daoism, we believe in the infinite possibilities and that Daoism is a well-tested and systematic way to actualize our true potential. If you find value in our video, please like and share to support us. Subscribe for more quality content on Daoism. Let us know what you'd like to learn about Daoism in the comments below. We value your support and feedback. All right, let's get started. As we mentioned before, during the Warring States period, feudal lords waged wars fiercely, and society was in chaos. Old systems and long-accepted truths were falling apart. In this troubled age, Taoist thought emerged. Different Taoist schools, like Lao-Zhuang, Yangzhu, and Huang-Lao, developed their own unique ideas and methods of cultivation. This episode focuses on Lao-Zhuang school, which centered around the teachings of Laozi and Zhuangzi. Though these two thinkers had their differences, people often see thoughts of Zhuangzi as building on that of Laozi. Laozi talked about the wu-wei, acting without forcing, while Zhuangzi went further, discussing carefree liberation, or xiaoyao, and equalizing all things, or qi-wu, faced with a chaotic world. The Lao-Zhuang school leaned towards stepping back from worldly affairs. Its teachings and lifestyles resemble those of hermits, staying out of the political struggles and away from the pride and shame of human world. Instead, it focused on self-cultivation and the transcendence of one's existence. So, who exactly was Zhuangzi? Zhuangzi, whose surname was Zhuang and given name Zhou, was from the state of Song in the Warring States era, living approximately from 369 to 286 BCE. In the Tang Dynasty, by imperial decree of the Emperor Xuanzong, Zhuangzi was granted the title Master Nanhua, and this work, Zhuangzi, was honored as the Nanhua Zhenjing, or the true scripture of Nanhua. As for Zhuangzi's family background, there are generally two theories. One says he was a descendant of nobles of the state of Song, but his family had fallen on hard times by the time he lived, retaining only a noble title without any significant government position. Another says his ancestors came from the state of Chu, linked to King Zhuang of the Chu, and later moved to the state of Song. Whichever the case, Zhuangzi was still part of the noble class of his time. Yet despite his noble roots, Zhuangzi chose to live as a recluse, uninterested in courtly affairs. According to Shiji, the historical records, King Wei of Chu, impressed by Zhuangzi's talent, sent messengers to invite him to serve as prime minister. Zhuangzi laughed and told them, 1,000 gold pieces is a lot of money, and prime minister is a high position. But have you ever seen the sacrificial ox used in temple rites? It's raised with care for years and dressed in fine silk, only to be led into the temple and killed. At that point, it can't just become a free little pig anymore, right? So please leave me be. Don't spoil me. I'd rather play happily in the muddy water than be tied down by the state's affairs. I will never serve as an official, so that I can remain true to my aspirations. Zhuangzi's carefree and transcendental character is also evident in the story recorded in Zhuangzi. When his wife died, his friend Huizi came to pay respects, only to find Zhuangzi tapping on the clay pot and singing. Shocked, Huizi reproached him. Your wife, with whom you shared your life, and has passed away. Now weeping is already too much, but to drum and sing is going too far. Zhuangzi replied, initially, I was sad too, but then I realized that life is a process from nothingness into being, and death is like the changing of the seasons. Now to rest peacefully between heaven and earth, if I were to continue crying, it would mean I do not understand the decree of heaven. Therefore, I stop my sorrow. This attitude towards life reflects his philosophical thinking. Zhuangzi valued clarity and emptiness, regarding all things from a perspective beyond the mundane. What stands out most about his philosophy is his pursuit of freedom. He sought transcendental freedom, believing that people should rise above the worldly constraints and external limitations and go beyond the narrow viewpoint of humanity to achieve true freedom. True freedom, in his eyes, is not merely liberation from external constraints, but also the transcendence of one's inner limitation and the fundamental form of life itself. He described the ultimate freedom as being like the Tao itself. It does not depend on anything. If one rides the norms of heaven and earth, harnesses the changes of six qi, and roams the realm of infinity, what would they depend on? Zhuangzi also saw everything as relative, good and evil, beautiful and ugly. These are merely subjective human judgments. If you cling to fixed labels, you will end up trapped by them. That's why Zhuangzi talked about equalizing all things, or qi from the viewpoint of the Tao. All things are equal at the fundamental level. Hence his famous quote, heaven and earth were born along with me, and all things and I are one. Because of this, Zhuangzi's philosophy inclined toward transcendence, pursuing the individual's ultimate liberation. Human society, and even the heaven and earth, are, from the viewpoint of the Tao, dreams and illusions, reliant on something else and not truly permanent or real. So if you attach yourself to these illusions, treating them as your core identity or main goals, it's like mistaking shadows for reality and becoming trapped by the endless appearances. Like Laozi, Zhuangzi believed that words can fully describe the fundamental state of the Tao. Unlike Laozi, however, Zhuangzi was great at using the limits of language to show contradictions and spark deeper understanding beyond words. His writing style is clever and ever-changing. His fables are rich in imagery and depth. They not only reveal his profound insights, but also his transcendental cultivation state. The most famous story is Zhuangzhou's dream on the butterfly. One day, Zhuangzi dreamed that he was a butterfly, happily fluttering around, not aware of any person named Zhuangzhou. Then he woke up and realized, oh, I am Zhuangzhou. That was a dream. All of us have felt something like that after waking up from a dream. But what makes Zhuangzi special is the next thought he had. Wait, am I a person who dreamed of being a butterfly? Or am I actually a butterfly now, dreaming that I'm a person named Zhuangzhou? The butterfly dream story, though simple, reveals Zhuangzi's deep reflection about the self and reality. We often assume that our waking state is the real one, but Zhuangzi makes us question. Could we also be just waking from one dream into another? In dreams, when we take on different roles or selves, when we wake, we quickly revert to our familiar viewpoint and think those dream selves were fake. But what if what we call awake is actually a dream from another world? What if, when we sleep, we wake up into a different world? If perspectives can shift endlessly across multiple worlds, which one is truly real? Or might all these worlds, selves, and viewpoints be illusions? Illusions within illusions, as we drift through various illusory selves in an endless exchange. Another less known story is even more thought-provoking. Zhuangzi introduces a striking imagery called Wang-Liang. What is Wang-Liang? Well, if you observe your shadow, you'll notice a semi-lit zone around it, changing as your shadow moves. It's like the shadow of a shadow. So one day, this shadow of the shadow asked the shadow, "You just moved, but now you're still. You just sat down, but now you stand up. Why are you always changing? Why don't you have your own steady way of being?" The shadow replied, "My actions depend on my master. When my master moves, I move. My own behavior relies on something else, which itself depends on something else. If my master's source of movement changes, he moves too. How do I know it's so? How do I know it's not so?" This image is powerful. The shadow of a shadow moves because of the shadow, and the shadow moves because of the person. But isn't the person also like a shadow of something bigger? And that bigger thing could be a shadow of something even bigger. This chain of cause and effect can go on and on. Our so-called free choices might just be the result of our genes, our upbringing, and the stimuli around us. Our personality might be like a program that reacts to the inputs from the environment. But what shaped our environment? Another bigger environment? So going up or down, we find layer after layer. It's illusions resting on illusions, going on forever. Zhuangzi believed that in such a chain, you cannot trace back to a fully authentic source. Human society, the natural world, and the self we think we know, from a fundamental viewpoint, are all part of this endless loop of illusions. What then is real? According to Zhuangzi, only by elevating our life's essence, through cultivating the being and non-being of the Tao, can we transcend these endless illusions. In terms of practice, Zhuangzi took more a self-cultivation approach, focusing mainly on individual transcendence and not on building up merit and deeds in the human world. In contrast, the Huang-Lao school took a more worldly method. They cultivate the body as a state and take the state as the body, using the human society as an apparatus for cultivation. Often this approach required accumulating external merits and deeds in the human realm, transcending the states of one's own existence by elevating the worldly conditions. Around the same time, the Yangzhu and Liezi tradition also leaned toward self-cultivation, but in their own ways. Liezi lineage could be described as a self-cultivation school with an interest in mystic powers. While also seeking personal transcendence, Liezi was intrigued by supernatural abilities. That's why he's remembered in Chinese culture as someone who could ride the wind and fly. Yangzhu, on the other hand, represented a more human origin strand of self-cultivation. He taught not to pursue external things, but to concentrate on preserving oneself, like a hermit who neither interferes with others nor allows them to interfere with him, maintaining selfhood and striving to isolate oneself from all external influences that could harm the spirit and the body. Zhuangzi teased both of these approaches. For Liezi, Zhuangzi said that even though he could ride the wind, his state was not truly supreme, because flying still depends on something, the wind and the earth qi. The highest state requires relying on nothing at all, riding norms of heaven and earth, harnessing the changes of six qi, and roaming the realm of infinity. As for Yangzhu, Zhuangzi thinks his viewpoint is limited. If everything outside and inside is basically not real, what's the point in protecting a false self? Refusing the outside world while still clinging to a fake self is just another kind of confusion. Zhuangzi holds a very high place in Taoism, But this reputation grew over time. During the Warring States period, when Zhuangzi lived, he wasn't the most celebrated thinker. Back then, the Yangzhu branch of Daoism and the Mohe school were more influential. Mencius wrote, "All talk in the world, if not turning to Yangzhu, then turns to Mozi." After the Warring States ended, during the Han Dynasty, the Huang-Lao school became most popular with the ruling class because it balanced personal transcendence and worldly engagement with the society. It wasn't until the end of Han Dynasty, after more than 400 years, that Zhuangzi's fame shot up. China again entered about the 300 years of severe turmoil. This was a time even darker and more terrifying than spring and autumn and Warring States period. Dynasties rose and fell in quick succession. North and South split apart. And during the worst periods in the North, cannibalism was widespread. People were called the two-legged sheep, and there were even records describing how to cook human flesh to make it more tasteful. It was an era of extreme darkness, terror, death, lost hope, and cultural decline. In such desperate conditions, people needed a mental escape. Huang-Lao's focus on governance offered little comfort. Hence, Zhuangzi's idea of stepping out of the world's mess gave scholars and nobles a spiritual refuge, sparking a trend of deep, mysterious discourse about his works. Besides the literati, Buddhism, which was then seeking to root itself in China, also borrowed heavily from Zhuangzi's philosophy in its early stages. Ideas such as carefree freedom, equalizing all things, and not clinging help explain Buddhist concept of nirvana, non-self, and non-attachment. As a result, people across the cultural landscape started to deeply respect and admire Zhuangzi's wisdom. When this long period of chaos ended and China entered another grand flourishing age, the Tang Dynasty, the rulers, claiming descendants from Laozi, made Daoism the state religion. They even created a special examination for government service called the Taoist examination, where studying Taoist scriptures earned one the right to become an official in the state. In the early Tianbao era, Emperor Xuanzong honored Zhuangzi as Master Nanhua, and his book became the Nanhua Zhenjing, or the True Scripture of Nanhua, one of the most important Taoist classics. By the Song Dynasty, Emperor Huizong granted Zhuangzi another honor title, wondrously subtle, primordially penetrating true Lord. From then on, as we see today, Zhuangzi has held an extremely high place in Daoism. Even now, 2,500 years later, Zhuangzi's importance is beyond doubt. In our modern world, where social rules and expectations are more subtle and ingrained than ever, it can feel like we are living in a dream. We're filled with the outside labels and pushed around by invisible forces to behave in certain ways. It's hard to know what our true selves really want. Zhuangzi's philosophy shines like a light in this fog, and his profound cultivation offers a path towards our own transcendence. Has Zhuangzi inspired you? Do you see him as a genius or a madman? Are you drawn to the self-cultivation for freedom and transcendence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found values in our video, please like and share it to support us. Subscribe for more quality Taoist content. We'll see you in the next video.